G'day and welcome to Brews. Today, a very large batch of kombucha, which I will be turning into sour beer. So, the way I make sour beer, it just starts as regular kombucha, and then once it's finished fermenting, I take the scoby out of the top and put in a whole bunch of white sugar and some USA-05 yeast. It's pretty straightforward. Very straightforward, in fact. So, the recipe calls for, we got 10 cups of sugar, and I've just dumped them straight in here. I'm not going to worry too much about mixing it in, because the scoby and the yeast from the scoby will find that sugar and it'll just eat it. It'll just go looking for it. It knows it's there. And I could be bothered mixing in 10 cups of sugar. Ignore everything I'm written here because I've had to double it. This I did for a 23 litre batch 12 months ago. So, got 16 tablespoons of black tea soaking away in the pot there. It's been going for about half an hour now. I've also got 60 bags of flavoured tea, so I went with 40 bags of the Tetley Forrest Fruits with a twist of apple, a very nice flavour, and I went with 20 rosehip tea bags also. So that's all been sitting for a good half an hour or so. So, without further ado, we'll get all this guy in. So the very last of the water, we're aiming for about 46 litres. About. And that'll do it. I reckon that's about perfect. So I've got my 46 litres. Ready to roll. Smells pretty good in there. And now, the secret weapon is this giant scoby that I made in my big 12 litre vessel by just letting it sit in the bottom and turn into a huge thing. You don't need a huge one like this to do a big batch. You can just grab a whole bunch of little ones, or you can just put one little one in there and it'll grow. But I'm actually making this batch for my brother's wedding. They have requested that they have sour beer at the wedding because they like kombucha, and so do all their friends. So this will get it going. I've got 98 days to get this sucker in production into bottles, and then I still need a few weeks for it to do its secondary ferment and start tasting really good. But yeah, I don't think it'll be a problem. Kombucha, sour beer is typically tastes great straight out of the fermenter. You just need it to do the secondary fermentation and let the sediment settle a little bit, and she's good to go. So now I am guessing this is going to take 2 to 4 weeks to ferment. Probably 2 to 3 weeks. I'm going to test the pH each week for the first couple of weeks, and then I'll probably test it every couple of days. I want the pH to get no lower than 5. 5 being a good level of acidity and tartness. You don't want a sour beer to be too sour. You also don't want the pH to be much lower than 5, or the yeast is not going to be too happy. It's going to struggle. But it's more so for the actual flavour outcome. Hadn't quite been 2 weeks, and that scoby that I put in here went berserk. And I think it was sitting at about 24 degrees in the bedroom. So it's been brewing beautifully there. It took, I think, 3 days shy of 2 weeks to ferment 46 litres. But when I say ferment, as I was saying, I was going to let it get down to about a pH of 5, because you don't want it much more sour than that. Once it hit 5, I'd pull the scoby out, which I've done. It was down to about 4.5, so it's got a nice flavour to it, but because the pH was only down to 4.5, it means it's still got a bit of sugar in it too. So the gravity is 1014, so that's what we're going to go at. So looking at my recipe from the last time I made this also, I put some notes in here to say something about 16 litres kombucha plus 7 litres of water. and then the sugars, and pitch your yeast. So that 46 litres I made, I didn't need 46 litres. I needed 32 litres, and then add 14 litres of cold water, or just 14 litres of water, tap water. So now I've got 14 litres of kombucha upstairs, ready for drinking. But it's all good. So anyways, so that's my sample for now. We're going to put all our sugars in. Now something else to note is that there's already a very fine film on top of this. See, you get those little stringy bits? Because there's still lots of probiotic, or sorry, not lots of probiotic, it's full of probiotics. It's probiotic beer, this, but it's also, part of that is the fact that it's still got all these live cultures in it, probiotics, and they will continue to, where possible, digest the sugar into more probiotics. That is just how it works. So this has been sitting here for 2 days now, cooling down to cellar temperatures, so it's 22 at the moment. And I've just got to keep an eye on this over the coming days, and I may find myself down here pulling out a very thin layer of a new scoby from time to time. It does happen, it's nothing to worry about. The beer still turns out great. There we go, 4 kilos. We'll top this up to 46 litres with the old garden hose. Give it some good aeration also. And I'm going to call that 46. One last stir for good measure. Take a gravity reading just to be sure. And get rid of that first bit to compensate for any non-diluted, concentrated. There we go, a bit more. So we're aiming for about 1040, because 1040 will give us about a, oh look at that, bloody hell. It's almost like I've done this before. So like I was saying, 1040 start does not sound high, but it will ferment down to, almost water. There we go, now I've got my 1040. Perfect. US 05 yeast. I'm just going to go 1 packet for now. I'm going to see how it ferments over the next few days. Normally you'd use 2 packets for a batch this size, but I'm going to give it a crack. I'm not in a rush. I'm going away for the weekend. If it's looking good when I get back, it's good. If not, I'll chuck another packet in. I'm not going to use my washed yeast for this, because I don't want any flavours of beer or hops or anything in this batch. This is all about celebrating the kombucha, the sour taste. So there you have it. Thank you for watching. We may add something on to this video at a later date, but for now we're looking pretty good. Leave this guy sit for a few weeks and see what we end up with.